Hi, this is Liz from the Village Bicycle, and you're listening to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's Creative Voice.
The nursery and all of the trees cross over the dark, and some old parking lots hold my whimpering thoughts, and I'm on the next train. You and me, can't you see what this means? In the light of a torch, realize nothing is forced, nothing is forced, nothing is forced, nothing is forced.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nursery Podcast. My name is Lee Boyle,
Tim Smiley.
and we're going to talk to you today about. Actually, neither of us are these avid fans, I don't think, but we're going to talk
No.
about Nirvana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here,
Go ahead.
the long and the short of it for me, a couple weeks ago, this gal at work brought up Kurt Cobain's Suicide Note, showed it to me, and then she showed me something she had written when she was a kid. Non sequiturs, I don't know. And then she had something, doesn't matter, but that put it in my head, Nirvana. So I somehow from childhood have all the CDs still. I bought a new car. It has a disc changer, right? 2008. And so I put them in, and I've been listening to them, and I can't stop because it occurred to me, this thought occurred to me. All right, it goes deeper than that, though. All right. Nirvana put out the album Nevermind. They put out the album Bleach, and it was, they recorded it for like $600.
Okay.
And that's on tape in 1989. Okay. And that was on Sub Pop Records. It was, kind of did something on college radio, kind of didn't. Then, turns out he had all these pop songs, Kurt Cobain, left over because, Sub Pop wanted him to record a grunge-sounding album, if that's a thing, which I don't know that it is, which we'll get into.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
they asked for that?
They did.
No
So
way.
Bleach, right.
Okay, go on.
The reason I know
Yeah.
this is I can't get it out of my head, so I got all the books. I went to the library and got all the, like Rolling Stone put out a book about him. It's got all the articles they've written. And then I got his journals, which I haven't started yet. But this is all from the Rolling Stone book. So, yeah, they're a punk band, clearly.
Sure.
Nirvana. It's a three-piece, it's a punk group,
Yeah.
obviously. But on their first record, Sub Pop was like, listen, we've created a genre. Basically, what they call grunge is slowed down hardcore. Like, terribly slowed down hardcore music. So, that's why the first album sounds like that. And he wrote the lyrics like the night before, like, I'm in high school again. And it's just not, it's okay. So then, they shop around the demos of these pop songs that he recorded with, Butch Vig in Wisconsin. And Geffen Records said, all right, we'll make an album. And then Butch Vig, ended up producing that album. And, like, he doubled the vocals. And it's a really slick production. Nevermind.
Why? You don't want me to pay attention to the production? Go on.
So, like, and it sounds great. And it's but I don't know. Are they a good band?
Well,
this is what I'm saying. Are they
yeah.
good? Or did they have a really successful, really well-produced album at a time when the world was like, oh, hair metal, we're over it, something new.
Yeah.
And then this guy's doing hardcore, which has been there. I don't know. That's my question. What I can't figure out, and the reason I'm doing all this is, are they any good at all?
Are they any good? Yeah.
Or are they
That's
just,
a good question.
I
mean,
so,
to you, are they good?
I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That, like,
because that's what's the only thing that's important.
Right,
obviously.
exactly. Yeah,
but
no.
So I want that answer first, and then we'll talk more critically and culturally.
right.
Like, what do you say first to that? If you take it to a personal level for you,
the album Nevermind.
Sure. Anything they've done. You
that's the thing.
take your favorite song of theirs. Is it amazing to you?
No.
Okay.
No. Because it's very
I guess
standard.
there's your answer in that regard.
Well,
but
and
it's not that you hate them. You like them.
Let me tell you this
yeah.
though. This is critically important.
Okay.
I I was born in 1983. Kurt Cobain died in 1994. I was 11 years old. So I was not a fan while he was alive. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I was,"
but it was through my babysit. It was through my babysit.
Right.
It wasn't, through an initiative that I took.
I grew up. My parents, dad listened to country, mom listened to Jesus music, so I had no exposure.
I watched Nirvana Unplugged live.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and that wasn't through my own choice, but I did enjoy it. But again, I'm like you. I'm just like you. So it's good that we can probably make some headway on this issue because it's all opinion, but we probably agree that they're good, but
they're not
they're
bad.
not brilliant to us.
Right.
A lot of people they are, and I was born in '84. I'm 32, so apologies to people listening. I know I have all apologies. Yeah. What else can I say? People
everyone is gay.
Yeah, well they are. Sorry, but the people they do have an influence, obviously.
Yeah, no,
but
clearly. They made I don't know. There's so many opinions out there. They made. I was watching a thing and they said Nirvana turned the '80s into the '90s, musically, culturally, because grunge. I don't even know if that's a style of music.
I know.
And here's why. Because it's all these Seattle bands that sound nothing alike stylistically.
That's right.
Pearl Jam sounds like Zeppelin.
Yeah. They're kind of more grandiose balladry.
Yeah.
Nirvana's more stripped.
Yeah. Stripped punk rock. And then there's Soundgarden, which is they're metal, but Pink Floyd metal. But it's Chris Cornell, and he's got that gorgeous, so it's
they are all quite different.
Yeah.
The only difference was taking the frills from the 80s away. That was grunge, right? It was taking that aesthetic away. So
making it dirty.
When you say is Nirvana good? David Bowie and Prince recently died during the recording of this podcast around this time, in 2016. And I always thought of them as people who were known for aesthetic more than songwriting. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I care about the songwriting. I always have cared about the songwriting. And for me, it doesn't matter so much how it was recorded, what instruments they chose. I don't care. The songwriting is good or it sucks.
Right.
And
right.
Nirvana, I suppose there's nothing there to judge but the songwriting because they were so very stripped. The choice of grunge. I think you're right to kind of cast that aside. What is grunge? Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They didn't make very many recording choices. They just executed.
Right,
and
exactly.
And that was. I think I like that.
Yeah.
From my personal experience, that's what I do, and I think it. I couldn't care less how somebody records. If it's a good song, I'm going to put it in my playlist.
Sure.
So if that's the aesthetic, the non-aesthetic, credit is due to them.
That's true.
But that's about it.
It was very formula, his songwriting. He talks about this in one of the interviews. It's soft, verse, guitar and clean, and then heavy, hit the drums harder, distortion on the guitar for the choruses, and that's you think about every hit song they have. That's it.
Right, that's right. If you took
every
those
song
songs
that's on the radio, then the rest of them are just
If you took those songs and put them in Unplugged, then you get to see which ones were the well written songs.
Yes, and that's why they did so many covers.
Yes,
in Unplugged.
There's your answer, man. There's your answer.
Pull off most of them.
Yeah, they took the aesthetic away, and their songwriting.
And he's not. He was okay. His lyrics are. They're good. I don't know because I think about that now because you think about the people. If you think about music, why did I say that weird? Music. You think about music. When you think about music, people who write the best, not even best. How do you judge? Who am I?
Music makes the people come together. Sorry.
No, lyric-wise, when the lyrics make sense, the music is very much James Taylor.
Yeah.
Great, really good lyricist,
example.
But it's just him and an acoustic
There's
guitar.
Nothing there. There's nothing there. There's
nothing but the words.
There's no aesthetic. There's no. Let's decide. There's not even a choice in the structure. There's just chords.
Right. Exactly.
It could be anything.
Right. And there's typically not even a chorus.
There's a good comparison. Weirdly to Nirvana. I'm sorry I'm making people angry who are listening. I know we are.
Are we?
I mean, some people. If we compare James Taylor to Nirvana, some people are like, "Here's Nirvana."
Oh, people care about this stuff.
If they care, if they're listening to us. But who cares? Don't let that side. sidetrack.
No, not at all.
I mean,
no.
Like, you and me are the kind of people that get too far inside our heads, and then we're going to apologize for too many things. So let me just place mark it with apology and move on to offend you more. Because the next thing I'm going to say, not you, but listeners who might love Nirvana and hate James Taylor, the next thing I'm going to say is that, like, there's not a choice to even make the song structurally, like, kind of animated or, like, colorful in James Taylor's case.
Right.
And I think that comes from loving the person making the music, not personally, but like here's a good example. Keanu Reeves, I really love him.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, oh, what kind of acting is that and stuff? But it doesn't matter. He could be in anything.
Right.
It just doesn't matter anymore. He's just like Bill. This is how a lot of people feel about Bill Murray.
Right.
Like, he can be in whatever.
Yeah.
He's not really trying that hard.
No.
Who cares? He's Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's what Kurt Cobain is. And I think that's what Nirvana is. Like, they could just...
right.
And they have, I don't think they crapped out anything, but they could crap out something. And their demeanor is what
They absolutely did. If you listen to that the third studio album, In Utero.
Okay.
There are the hits that we know: Dumb, Rape Me. I forget the titles.
Heart-Shaped Box.
Heart-Shaped Box,
yeah.
right. And those ones you can tell are worked on. And then there's other ones which are just noise. There's that one he says, "Dog, stay, test me," and that's clearly that I'm like, oh, this is filler, and that's fine. You have a contract and whatever, but they absolutely just in the studio. Let's just make a bunch of noise. These kids will love it. And then it's funny to read the review of that record, and some asshole journalist who thinks they know music, and maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know. Say, oh, well, this is ethereal, and it's this, and he's saying this, and you don't know. This was a point when he was on a lot of heroin because of his stomach issues or whatever.
But to learn whether or not it's good is not a thing. I mean, it's you're the critic now.
I'm the
Yeah. Forget them.
Right.
I like Back to the Future 3 the best.
I do too.
Okay.
Well,
so screw everybody else.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, don't have to agree with me. I'm just saying as an example. I also like Jedi the best, and I know I'm an idiot, but
Jedi's adorable.
Yeah, that's why I like it. The colorful things that have personality, that maybe say some things that you thought were too cheesy to say, but they totally greenlit it.
Right.
Like, those are my favorite projects.
Because people are going to keep coming back. Because we've done this. Fuck you, take my money.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course that. But even without that, the most colorful and outspoken are my favorite. Out of the Seattle movement. Who's my favorite artist? The Presidents.
Oh, of course.
Because they went and sang about some animals and talked about some dumb things, and I was like, cool.
Because Chris was like, listen, I love this style. You guys are so sad. You're downers. I'm going to do the same style, but I'm going to sing about peaches and dune buggy and little insects. And
they had a Beck thing happening where they sounded nonsensical, but they really were speaking from their heart.
Exactly.
And I guess I saw, to bring up another cultural reference, The Glamour and the Squalor, that there's a documentary about the guy that seemingly, I guess the documentary obviously cognitively reframes, but seemingly he would press play on somebody's song on Seattle radio, they would have a gold record.
Right.
And I saw Chris Ballou interview where he said, hey, I got up on stage with Beck one time when his backing track went out and helped him out, and that's how my music career began. And so I tend to fall towards the Beck and President's side of things.
Sure.
So Nirvana is alien to me in probably a way that might be to you through other avenues.
Right.
That's why we're both confused.
Yeah.
Because you're more confused by the cultural significance than your own opinion, right?
Right. And but at the same time, because I asked my brother-in-law this, he is 42.
Okay.
So he would have been 17 when that record came out. I saw him 2 days ago. I was doing a job for him. And I said, did it change everything? He goes, oh, yeah. It killed hair metal and brought in this other thing. The thing that's funny about it is that everybody listened to it. And this is something, and I realized, this will never happen again. It won't. We're never going to have a Nirvana. We're never going to have a grunge. Because music now, with the internet, there's not one record company saying, this is what you like. Putting it all over the radio, putting it all over MTV, going, like this because it's all we're going to play. You will hear nothing but this. Mm-hmm. Now people choose where they get their music. So there's never going to be, sorry, whoever's trying to do this, it's not going to happen because it's, in many ways that's better because you're like, oh, I like this music. here's a place for you to find this style of music, people you've never heard of, and now you love them, and you go to their shows, and it's adorable and whatever. But as far as music revolution, like, you know, people say the Beatles did that, because there was one, you know, avenue to get it, and they're just shoving it at you. They've marketed it to you.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, that Seattle attitude where these guys are like, fuck the industry, like, I hate being a celebrity. That's Kurt Cobain. That's Eddie Vedder. They're famous for that. But at the same time, they accepted the money. So is that even real?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well,
or is it marketing? Is it, I also hate the music industry. Yeah. Me, the factory worker, me, the school teacher, me, the whoever. You know? So I will purchase, it's like brilliant at the same time, because it's like, I will purchase them, because you had to buy it then. Couldn't, where else are you gonna, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I see that.
So it's
yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are making sense culturally.
Right.
For sure. And I staunchly believe that regardless of what popularity and culture would have done, if Kurt Cobain's attitude had been different in some parallel universe and they existed now, they'd be making like amazing music.
Well,
like,
right.
You know, not because, they would have had so many chances and gotten better. No. I just think like with seasoning and stuff, they would have put out some stuff that was like a studio version of Unplugged, and it would have really been amazing. Like, you know how Foo Fighters put out that double album in 2005 that was In Your Honor? Half was rock and half was acoustic. That acoustic moment, maybe it wasn't brilliant, but for them it was like
it was the
next level. Well, like Nirvana probably would have made it there, I think, and would have done something. Because a lot of artists that you and I grew up with now I really believe are making the best records of their career right now.
No, that's very true.
And like Nirvana would probably be no exception.
No, and that's true. But I wonder, like, so many things. There are people. All right. The Beatles are iconic, as are the Rolling Stones, but for different reasons. The Stones are iconic because they're still doing music now, and they're 2 million years old. The Beatles recorded music together for 7 years, and then they broke up. There was a finite amount of material, and it's all there, and it's in the. They were all in the. Like, George Harrison was 25 when they broke up. He was a young man. You know what I mean? So Nirvana was together. I don't know how long, but they made like 3 records in a studio together. They made a compilation album of old singles, Incesticide, and they made that live, the acoustic one, and then they put out that live record after he died. The acoustic one, and it was then the group was done. So that's why they're iconic. And, you know, personally, of course I like their music. Of course I do. To answer your earlier question, of course I do.
Okay.
I wouldn't keep listening to it if there wasn't something there that I was like, I like this part. And the more I listen to it, because again, I'm stuck, man. It's just repeating. I'm trying to find something, but it's not. I'm not.
I know what
yet.
you mean, but like, if this puts your mind at ease at all, and this is just my opinion, but like that cultural impact doesn't get to be taken away from the attachment of the music. You can't separate one from the other.
True.
ever.
No, that's
so
true.
like it's not like you're gonna find out one day that yes, they were good.
They were awesome.
Like because that impact has to do with his personality.
Right.
Like,
and the time in which he lived. No, that's
the reason I'm making this podcast with you and all these friends that were so important to me growing up in like an artistic area that shouldn't have been artistic is because I want people to get to know even more sides of what I already do.
No, for
so
sure.
like that's what Nirvana did inadvertently.
Right.
And so like to ever try to unchain Kurt Cobain's cultural significance and soaked in bleach and maybe some stuff they don't want chained to it at all, like montage of they probably want that, but whatever, all that. To unchain that from the music is impossible for people our age. Some people it won't be. There'll be somebody you can play it for years down the road and be like, is this good? And maybe you'll have your answer.
Yeah.
But like who
a kid,
cares?
Like a kid. And they'll go, well, this is nice.
To know purely if Nirvana matters or not, the answer is yes.
Oh, of course.
And so like that
Obviously,
it's
there's
hard
books,
to.
there's all this.
Yeah.
And it was a thing. It doesn't matter why. You're right.
It just doesn't matter why. I mean, even with stuff that's scientifically based, it sometimes doesn't matter why.
Right.
That's what's weird about it.
Right.
And I know what I'm doing here is coming out of the realm of our argument and trying to up what you're saying. Like, I get not. That you were trying to say, let's play the game of does Nirvana matter for the podcast? Like,
I mean,
like, I know you were thinking about it in real life, but I'm saying, like, you're playing in one realm where, like, the minute if you want peace of mind, you just step out of it for a second and be like, oh, yeah, crap. Like, there's no way to unhinge Nirvana from the cultural, like,
which
phenomenon.
Is true, but I liked, I was just...
Oh, it's so fun. You got to entertain it. I just meant it.
You've given me perspective I didn't have before.
Yeah.
That's very true. It does matter, because I was Yeah. And then I think the thing that muddies the waters for me is that as always happens, here's a thing that uniquely happens, and then there's all these other bands that are like, us too.
Yeah.
Whether they've always been doing that or not, but this happens, and then all the record companies are signing bands right and left in Seattle. This is what happened. Because they're like, oh, grunge, it's a thing, and then it became fashion, and it became... and they call it a movement. And I was reading these articles online, and it's so funny. They keep calling it the grunge movement. They said the ideals of grunge, the ideals. I'm like, what are what?
Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah.
What, flannel?
Yeah, I know. It's
what
ridiculous.
Are the No. The young people are always going to be anti-establishment because they have no experience with the establishment.
There's punk rock in a lot of things, and that's fine. But here's
and it
something.
Is punk rock.
What do you hear What did you hear Kurt Cobain say when he was interviewed about the band? Did he think they were brilliant? No.
God.
He never did.
No.
So really,
he
his
didn't
ideals...
even want to be a singer.
Yeah, his exact ideals as to what he thought they were, which usually was something to the effect of, we're a pretty good rock band, is exactly what you think of them.
Right.
So let your mind rest easy in that.
Yeah.
What Kurt intended, you exactly received, right?
No, you're right.
That's what he really intended. Those hardcore fans that really love him, they might even understand that, like, these are just some good 4-chord rock.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, even in their eyes, even if they're insanely in love with it, they might know on some level that the brilliance isn't in the, like, songwriting or the aesthetic.
Right.
It's just in that somebody achieved, this is just, like, straight up, like, sloppy rock, like, made for a large audience. And that's it. That's what they did. That's what he wanted.
Right.
And so it's almost like you're purely a real fan.
Right, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, you're taking his exact intentions instead of acting like they're amazingly, like, otherworldly.
Right, right. And I think in the end... for me, it has very little to do with him.
Now it does, right. Now what's it have to do with? Like, there's just so many other layers there.
It's true. And I think it's funny when we do have these guys, Kurt, Eddie Vedder, when they're like, I hate being a celebrity. I'm like, well, why did you start a band then?
Well, that's,
you know what I mean? And it's so obviously that's a character. Yes, I understand someone's like, I just wanted to be a regional. Then why'd you sign the contract? And so
REM talked about that too, really late in their career. They talked about in like 2000, like 1 or 2 or 3, not that late, I guess, but they said the best times in their lives was coming out of Georgia playing 50 people.
Right.
Stuff. So I guess
back
you and me are...
Michael Stipe had hair.
Yeah, you and me are apparently living the dream.
I guess
according to REM and Kurt Cobain.
Right. Before
it all got horrible and they started making
and they had
money.
all that money and
yeah, it's weird. That's what's interesting. I mean, they mean it kind of in context of the whole journey too.
Sure.
So it's like REM was like the best times in the whole world was playing to 50 to 100 people driving around in a van. That was the best time. We'll never go back to.
Right, but then they got together 81, broke up in 2011. So I mean, that's at the end of a storied career.
I know. So you can't really. Their advice, you can take it a little bit, but to what end?
They were like 18, 19 when they started. These people have never...
Yeah, really, the best times in their head are like, of course they were the best times.
Right.
They would have been the best times to wherever you were.
And these people they've never had to grow up in the sense that you and I have.
That's right.
We have to work.
Yeah, that's
we
very
have
true.
Bills, and these people have just always had, and that's fine. I'm not comparing, I'm not whining. It's not sour grapes.
No.
I'd prefer to be an adult, rounded as much as I am or could be, in the sense that I must go to work and understand responsibility and things like that, rather than be a man-child rock star.
Well,
because what is that?
When you go and make music, quick plug, we're talking about Seattle, go check out the free compilation of Seattle Stars with Tim Smiley's music under the
moniker of Icarus Fleu.
with our Third Class and the Zoo and Sleep Projections and a bunch of other bands. Anyways, when you make music like that of Icarus Fleu, you know to some level you're putting it out for it to be somebody else's other than your own.
Oh, no, for sure.
Kurt seemed to have zero perception of that, even in the midst of coming up. And we
that's
haven't
true.
experienced
No,
we
that's
haven't
true.
experienced what he has.
Right.
So I'm not going to say, oh, I would have understood. But like,
I don't know that we would have.
No, but he seemed to not understand the idea of a song not being yours anymore.
Right.
In a
Well, he was also a very young man. He was 27 when he died.
Yeah, and that's
I don't
fine.
know his level of education. I mean, he was intelligent.
Yeah.
Reading those, he's not stupid.
No.
But he was very emotional. And
Yeah.
I think there was some bipolar there, because they're talking about he'd be the life of the party, joking around, talking intelligently, having conversation, and then a minute later sitting sulking in a corner.
Yeah.
And they asked, Butch Vig asked Chris, the bass player, he said, is he okay? He goes, oh, he's all right, just gets quiet sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's a person driven by emotion, which makes sense why the songs are written the way they are.
Yeah.
The slow build and then the burst of the... But that was also... He's doing what the Pixies did. So I mean, it all comes from somewhere. Mm-hmm. But a person like that, you're right, I don't know that they would understand that something doesn't belong to them anymore.
No. But the positive things we can say about Nirvana and Kurt Cobain is that I think they belong to the school of thought that had to do with songwriting rather than aesthetic.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what's positive about him. Is that he came from, John Lennon did the song Mother after the Beatles broke up, and it was like very primal, and it was like that. I think I credit that song for later.
For sure.
Stuff. Like, it feels like this Beatles thing that you brought up and everything does tie together well, because Beatles were songwriting, Rolling Stones were just redefining the rock aesthetic over and over again.
Right. And they're like, oh, here's a blues record. Mm-hmm. And they're still together. And, like, for example, Paul McCartney, I don't know any of his solo albums.
Yeah. And it's not like he quit doing that. He's still doing it. It's just become such a volume of work.
Right. Like, not everyone gives a shit.
Yeah.
Because he's still here and he's still working, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
John Lennon is dead. Because we have martyrs. Like, with rock and roll, we have martyrs.
Yeah, we do. That's right.
And whether the suicide, murder, whatever, or just dying. Like you said with Prince, people are so upset. And I'm like, I think it's because we're not going to have rock stars anymore, coming back to what I said before.
That's what he meant. Yeah, that's what he talked. David Bowie, and Rolling Stones were all about the iconic.
And all those rock stars are when we're 50, it's not going to be like, oh, so-and-so. Like, there's no one now. Yeah. And I'm not upset about that. That's
Maybe
fine.
You're right. Yeah, it'll just be looked at totally differently.
Or your local... when we're like in our 60s, Khalid Tabara died. It'll be like,
it might mean just as much personally, but it won't be as culturally as a big
like the world mourning John Lennon or anything like that.
Yeah,
and that's,
like Tom York dies or something.
Right.
Like,
well,
it won't be the same.
That'll be
it will be different.
The last of that.
I think you're right in saying no. Anyone
who became famous before the internet became what it is now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Because
Maybe
that
was
made it
the
all.
Yeah. When Drake dies, let's say, that won't be the same.
Right.
Even if, he's a total icon, but it'll just be a little bit different way to like broadcasting that sadness and stuff. Like, it'll be a total different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is normal for everybody, but yeah. Oh, Paul McCartney has a song called "Early Days" on his album called "New," and it's about him starting.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Like, it's weird. It's like those people that write songs, they can't stop. They just can't stop.
Yeah.
Same with Presence, even if they don't make
he's
another
like
album.
Busking now.
Yeah. He makes
doing.
awesome money. He just sells those CDs.
And he writes songs for kids.
Mm-hmm. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He just plays in coffee shops and stuff. I went and saw him play in a coffee shop in Bellevue. Yeah. In Bellevue, Washington.
Did you podcast him?
No, I did email him and say, will you podcast with me? And he turned 50 last year and went on the first vacation he's taken in like forever.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have an age. Like, he's just so like straightforward and like real about what he does that he just emailed back directly and was like, I'm taking a huge vacation. I'm glad you listened to it. He's like, I'm going to listen to your band. Thank you. And I was like, I also love all your side. And I geeked out. And I was like, I listened to Feelings, Hijackers, and Casper Baby Pants. And we play ping pong and we listen to you in East Palestine. And he was like, that's great. And he was like, he talked, but he's got bigger fish to fry. He probably makes more money now than he did during the mid-career of the Presidents, because he sells all those CDs straight from his like car and and he plays all these like library shows and stuff. So he has a more direct like revenue now.
Yeah.
Not to make it boring for
No,
listeners. But,
like going through.
But he's a songwriter. What I mean to say is him and people from the Beatles and stuff they can't stop. They write songs. It doesn't really matter how they recorded it.
Right.
Whereas Rolling Stones, I can't barely name a song. I know the style.
Yeah.
That's their thing.
Yeah.
Prince, he has a few songs, but I know the style.
I like the way you say that too, because I imagine you can't stop.
I can't stop
and
either.
This is the difference because I'm a bass player.
Yeah.
I've only ever been a bass player. There was a minute. I enjoyed your podcast with Todd, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I liked
that was awesome.
That was cool.
Him and I almost worse than you and I in like.
Oh yeah, it's like, but I
going
followed
way
it.
spiraling into like out of control.
Thing.
Yeah,
because I saw him the day it came out. I wasn't aware that he was going to be on, and then like we talked, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll be on," and then it came out. So it's great,
awesome.
But. I early in those days, back in the Van Blimps.
Yes.
I wrote and sang half the songs because that's what Todd told me to do. He was always the leader. It's clear. He's always been and now he's been on the podcast. When you're a kid, there's one friend who's really smart and attractive, and one friend who's not as smart as him, and like. Or girls probably too. You know what I mean? Like the friend who's like, he's better than me in every way, and you know what I mean? Like, and that was I feel like that wasn't our dynamic so much, but I think that's just a fact. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm not. That sounds weird, doesn't it?
No.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
He was the talent, and I'm I'll back you up, buddy. I'll play the bass.
Okay.
Right? And that's always how it was. And that's all I ever wanted to do. Because I'm not good at writing songs. I can express myself through terrible poetry or things that I keep very much to myself. I would never show anyone that stuff. That's for me. That's therapy or whatever, right? But I have no talent for songwriting. So that's why I had to... In order to, if I was going to express myself musically at all, of course it's Icarus Fleu. Of course it's instrumental electronic music. I have nothing to say.
But that's
you know
craft.
What I mean?
That's craft, though.
It is, and I'm not comparing the two.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think it's interesting that's I don't know, because I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, because Todd obviously is still writing songs. He's a very I mean, at this point, probably better than he's ever been, because that's what happens when you keep with it. But I think it's interesting that that's where I logically would go as the accompaniment.
It's hard to see where you're going to land.
Because I'm not, you don't see the bass player then, unless it's Paul McCartney, because he was a guitar player at first, who then says, "All right, Phyllis, I'll play the bass."
Yeah.
Because Stu stayed behind in Hamburg. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to know where you're going to land based on like what your influences are.
Right, but I think what I'm trying to say is my computer, like the hard drive crashed, and I just am like, So I'm not driven to make music in the same way that... I'm realizing this now. I'm sorry, you can cut this.
No. Hey, listeners, if you're following, I have to plug this before we go on. Like, listen to an episode called... House Shows and Hidden Identities. Listen to an episode called Persons of Interest and Van Magnets, and then you'll get then follow it up with this story.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to speak to people who are regular listeners, but I know most of you haven't heard every episode, so I gotta cut in with that. But what you're realizing is what your influence on, or what music was for you.
Oh, I'm not driven.
You're not driven to write songs.
No.
Yeah.
No, and I always wanted to be. I think I always wanted to be that guy. I always wanted to be that guy. You know how there's who you are and there's who you love to be? I always wanted to be I create. I'm an artist. I'm a this, I'm a that. And it turns out I don't know that I am.
Why did you want to be that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea because I liked it, because the aesthetic. I really don't know.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying that what I've made is false. It's
awesome. It's awesome
but
stuff.
But it's not. There's no passion there. Those are sounds.
For you, there's not, but for somebody else,
maybe.
there is. Yeah.
But I've never thought of it that way.
Well, that's what it is. It's not yours anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
But to me, those are just things that sound neat together.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you build
There's
stuff.
no heart there.
Right.
Because that's not.
craft.
Maybe
It's
I'm
craft.
just not.
That's kind of to me a division of the songwriting entities. There's
Right.
craftsmen that like just are amazing at building instrumentally, like you, and there's people that like care more about lyrics. So there's like two sides
Yeah.
of the songwriter. So I think you're still in the school.
Yeah, maybe.
Because
Well,
you're not really
maybe-
basing it on sounds. You're basing it on like kind of like this bass rhythm and then
No, that's
melody
true.
and stuff.
That's true.
You know, like I heard that Bon Iver artist. He was like, I built this whole album based on sounds, and it was his second self-titled.
Yeah.
And before I heard it, I knew I was like, I'm gonna hate this. Like, I'm gonna hate it. Like, some people can do it and I'll like it, but
Yeah.
with most cases, I'm like, oh man.
Well, he's also, I don't know, he's something. I heard his first record, some of it, and I was
Yeah.
like, this makes me very sad.
Yeah, it's very
because I respond
well-written songs and
very
stuff.
emotionally
Yeah.
to music. Like, there's some things I can't listen to.
Yeah.
I will, for some reason, anytime there's a choir,
Yeah.
I cry.
Like Flower by Eels. You ever
Right?
listen to that?
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And then there's this is stupid in the first Sister Act, when they get their act together, right? And they do the first performance at the church, right? And then when that little tiny woman starts hitting those notes because they're doing Ave Maria,
Yeah.
right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You know the scene, and then she hits that, like, it just I lose it every time.
Yeah, man.
Every time.
What's up?
Hi. I like
So-
your shirt.
Thank you.
I think that what we came in from this conversation with and what we got into now is exactly what we started, exactly what we said we were going to go, because you asked why culturally Nirvana mattered,
Right.
and now we're naming things we really care about.
Right.
Like
yeah.
now we're talking about
We got
local
through
acts
it.
that listeners might not have heard of,
Yeah, yeah.
and we're talking about Sister Act, and we're talking about things that you actually care about.
Yeah.
So it was like almost like, why does Nirvana matter? It doesn't matter. Let's talk about the other stuff
That's
too.
true.
Like,
oh yeah. No, it's very superficial.
that's what was cool about it, is that you got to the heart of like what you like. You realized something about your like own self
in the room. I
in
realized that.
in this conversation.
Maybe I'll stop making music.
And then well don't do that. But like and then
I don't know.
but for listeners,
weird.
like I think we went from does grunge matter to what the effect has had on like small town
well,
people
and that's
now.
it. And that's it. That's exactly it. The point that I cry, the reason that I cry every time that little girl hits that note in the film Sister Act, which is very specific, is the point of why we make music. Because I
Yes.
struggle. I go through this thing of, well, what does music? You can't eat it. It can't keep you warm. You can't live in it. What is it?
What the
Why
hell
does
is
it
it?
matter?
Yeah. Like
And then-
sports.
right? And
Yeah.
then
What is this? Why
you're
are people
it's-
gathering to
It's
see
the
this?
most useless thing that we care the most about, right? Useless meaning, like I said, you can't eat it. So I struggle with that, and I go, well, what does it matter? And then I realize that it expresses when you're a songwriter, which just means that you're a poet. You express what everyone else is feeling, but they don't have the words to say it.
You sometimes even go as far as writing the songs that they're afraid to write.
Exactly
and stuff
that.
like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Stuff that they would almost say, that's too silly for me to say out loud. You say it.
Right.
Like,
And
that
you
might
go,
be a thing.
Oh, that's the first time you hear
Yeah.
it, and then it's just what it is.
Yeah.
And then because it can make you like something, man. I don't know if it's the notes. I don't know if it's the words. I think maybe it's both.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing that a
know.
lot of stuff doesn't, in a comforting way, that certain things might not matter, to harken back to the Persons of Interest and Van Magnet's episode.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that almost nothing might matter in a certain regard.
Right. But it still makes us feel.
It makes you feel, no doubt.
And maybe
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. That's
Maybe
all
that's the
you
point.
need
And
to
maybe
know.
that, dear listeners, is why Nirvana, in fact, was good.
They were good.
End of episode.
Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.